Hey there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and today I'd like to introduce you to a very special guest who is an emerald with Amway Australia. She's a mum of 4. She's got 2 of her own kids, 2 beautiful stepkids, and she is balancing an incredible business with busy life, just like so many of us out there. I'm really excited to introduce you to Tamsen Sala-Linnan. Now, the thing I love about Tamsen is she is super real, but she's also super focused. In this podcast interview, she shares with us not only how she stays focused on what really matters, but how she balances her time to get ultimate business growth. She's achieved a 6-figure income, over a 6-figure income, growing her business while also balancing family, personal life, and all of the important things. The thing that's really great, and you're going to get this feeling as you listen to this episode, is she is so laser focused on what she wants and what she's going to achieve and how she's going to go about achieving that. She's also really upfront and honest that it hasn't always been easy. And she mentions during the interview that she's had those challenges that have helped her realize that, you know what, not every activity we do in our business is going to be productive and help me get to where I want to be. But through those challenges, she shares with us what she's learned. And I'm really excited to share this interview with you guys. Listen on in, grab pen and paper, because as always, she's going to drop a ton of golden nuggets. So get ready, listen on in and enjoy. Welcome back on into the podcast, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Now, I am really excited to introduce to you a very special guest today, Tamsen Sala-Linnan, who is an emerald within the Amway business and has got a really interesting journey to share with us today. Thanks for joining us, Tamsen.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome having some conversations with you over the last little bit.
Yeah, look, I've had a lot of fun chatting with you as well. And what's really interesting is we've got so much in common. I didn't realize that we've both got 2 of our own kids plus 2 bonus kids. So technically we're mums of 4 working. And I think it's absolutely fantastic to hear a little bit. I've loved learning a bit about your journey in the business, which to me is quite unique. And I think our listeners are going to love today to hear a little bit about where you've come from and where you are today.
Yeah. So my background's probably a little bit unique to the direct selling industry or the network marketing industry in terms of that, what you call second generation. So I actually saw the business firsthand. I mean, through our business model, my parents reached a level called Diamond, which basically resembles a pretty significant professional income replacement. And so they're both completely retired from their professions from the time I was 1 and then built it on from there. So, my perception of this industry was really positive initially and saw it firsthand, and then actually got started in the equine industry for myself after high school. And it wasn't long in that industry where I realized that, their success was not what you get everywhere. And I think I just assumed if you work hard, you'd create success. And I just didn't see that in the industry I was working in. And that's why I chose to research this as a business vehicle. And that was when I was about 18. And
wow. So from 18, you've jumped into the direct selling industry.
Yes. Yeah. So I got started pretty young, and honestly, probably the greatest gift, because at that age you're so naive that you don't even try and bring in any of your own information, and you just trust the system and trust the process. And I really believe that that's why I was able to create a result significantly fast. I mean, I was able to replace my income within 18 months and build an emerald business in 3 years, which in our industry, I mean, emerald represents a 6-figure professional style additional income. So,
well done.
And so a lot of that, I think, comes down to the fact that I was just completely trusted the process, trusted my parents, and was able to, get my head down, bum up and work it.
So how much time have you had to spend working with your parents? I mean, this is quite unique that you've got parents in the industry and you sort of followed along in their footsteps. The great news is that you've got people that you really do trust being your parents. So you're able to watch them and you've seen them go along the journey. But how do you go with working with them? How much involvement did you have working with them right from the very beginning?
Look, I mean, actually, to be completely honest, they were enjoying a lot of the lifestyle that this business had given them for a number of years before I got started. So, I didn't actually see necessarily the day-to-day workings of the business. I just saw the result. and bought into that initially. But in terms of time, honestly, it was probably less, if not the same, to most upline downline relationship. I think in that dynamic relationship there, where it's parent to child, they wanted absolutely the best for me, as every upline does for their downline, and so they, I guess, helped me get out on my own faster and just develop my own skill set, so I could lead and I could be equipped, not necessarily enabled. And sometimes the more time you spend under someone's umbrella, you become enabled, not equipped.
I love that. But let's be really honest here for a second. I mean, were they tougher on you than they are on anyone else?
Oh, look, I mean, I don't think so, like, at all. I think, and I don't know what you mean by tough, because I think this industry is tough, and parents are always tough. But I think definitely initially they were like, hey, you want to make sure that, I mean, this industry is a career, right? It's not something you dabble with. And, this is not a fun hobby, this industry. It's a great career. It's not a fun hobby. No one makes a huge amount of wealth from our industry as a hobby. So I think they actually initially wanted to make sure that I was serious about it. So they really just kind of stood back and allowed me to prove myself initially, because, they didn't want me to just kind of dabbling and not following through on this. So, so I guess if that's what you call tough, then I'd say probably, but I'm super grateful that is how I got started, because I just learn the skills.
So, Tamsen, how old were you? I'm really curious to know a little bit about your parents' journey as well. How old were you when your parents started in the business?
I wasn't born,
Oh, so, wow. This is before your time.
Yeah. So my parents saw the business before they even had kids. Wow. In Sydney, they were both working professionally in engineering, in the engineering industry. And actually one of Dad's work colleagues came and showed him the business plan. And so they got started, and my mum was actually already retired from the business before they started their family. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And my dad was able to replace his income and retire when I was one. So,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about the evolution, because your parents would have built the business purely through relationships and networking face-to-face back in the day. Things have changed a little bit now, and we've had, the digital world has popped up. I would say, now I'm going to hazard a guess here, that when you first started the business, that probably wasn't really a thing then. How have things changed for you over, how have you seen things progress and change from where it was, when you were observing your parents as a child to now being in the business yourself?
Oh, a lot, and huge. I mean, even if you talk about distribution as one factor, I mean, from the time my parents started to now, to when I got started to now, is massive. I mean, obviously when my parents started, online shopping wasn't even a thing. The online world wasn't a thing. So distribution's one thing. So obviously that whole process of having to have stock and that being eliminated with the virtual world. And so, and then even to the point where I got started, where, it's almost like the most enticing way to start a business with zero overheads. So that's a huge thing. The second thing, obviously, is the networking process. Obviously, there was not even mobile phones, right? When my parents got started, it was that long ago. So that to now smartphones, where, man, you can place orders, you can connect with anyone off your phone, Zoom meetings, and just everything. It's just huge. But the funny thing is, and this is what I say to people everywhere, like, all the processes have changed over the years, but the principles are still the same. The principles are, we're a relational industry, and we're building people's dreams, and we're building a business to match their dreams. And so even though processes have changed, that's still core. That core of that part of our business is still the fundamental part of our business. And that's where it's just getting easier and easier to do that fundamental principle.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. And, that's the really great thing about this industry, is the fact that it can mold around anybody and any situation and any circumstance. And now this actually segues perfectly, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the uniqueness of the fact that you were in the business and you grew the business prior to becoming a mum. Now, you've obviously got busy mum life right now. I mean, you've done the kid juggle. You've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and then you've got your 2 older children as well. And so you've gone from having the option of full-time to having to juggle things. So tell me a little bit about that transition. How's that gone for you? I think we've got a lot of mums listening right now that are going, I don't know how to balance this business and actually be successful while still being a mum, but you've done it. So I want to hear from you.
Yeah, you know what? Like what did I do with all my time before I had kids? I think everyone's
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I thought I was busy before.
Exactly. But like there's a blessing in disguise. I always say to people, on one hand, the sooner you build it, the better, because as kids get older, the more time they need. And I always say to people, you always feel like your time's consumed, but man, like just get it done, bite the nails, whether you're pregnant, whether you've got a newborn, whether you've got older kids, just, get it done. And on the other side, I was actually having this conversation with my husband the other day, is how much more effective I've become with my time since being a mum. And the truth is, our industry doesn't need that much time. It just needs effective time pockets. Yep. And if you can prioritize, hey, this is my work time and then this is my family time. And,
absolutely.
And in terms of you cross over the two in terms of your kids are part of your dreams, but you're not compromising in either worlds, and you don't need a lot of time. You just need a clear goal on what you're doing with your time. And so I think it's almost a blessing. I know it sounds so silly to say that, but I mean, we all learn. So we all waste time, invest time, but you know what I mean? In the beginning, through our learning process in this business, and that's normal. I mean, there's a lot of time you just got to get your hands dirty and trial and find what works for you. But I truly believe when you have less time, you just choose to be more effective with it.
Yeah.
And you can really, really maximize your time efforts right now with how the world is. So I think kids are a blessing in one hand, but definitely if you don't have kids yet, dig the well before you dig the water, because it's definitely, I think, more emotionally harder. You always feel torn, and you always have that kind of, I suffer bad from FOMO. I'm such a fear of missing out person. Yep. So, it's always that part, but yeah.
So Tamsen, how do you prioritize your time? You've obviously got a lot less time in your business now, so you've got to be really protective of that. So where do you place your priorities at the moment? What for you is the lowest hanging fruit and most important aspect to work on first and foremost in your business for growth right now? Because you've obviously learned through trial and error what does and doesn't work. So what's your priority at the moment for you when you do find time?
I mean, we're a duplication industry, right? I mean, we get paid good amounts of money for having a network, but we get paid significant amounts of money for having duplication and leadership. Yep. So ultimately, that's the ticket in our industry. And if you can invest your time in terms of developing leadership, equipping people, and walking people through that process and finding leaders, that's your time well spent, in my opinion. And so, from my perspective, if I had 2 hours to invest time into this business, majority of that time for me is in that. And then the other side of that is myself personally increasing my network personally and stretching myself personally, because I can never expect people in my team to do things that I'm not prepared to do. If I'm not prepared to go out there and prospect and walk new people through that process myself, then, I'm not going to lead with integrity in that process. So for me personally, they're the two areas that I finally had 2 hours. I'll be investing, majority of my time in those 2 hours.
So let's just say that we've got someone. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I did pre-warn you that this would happen. We always line out, guys, our questions that we're going to sort of plan to ask, and then I always warn everyone who knows where this could go. And so it just, one of the things that popped into my mind as you were talking through that just then, because this is really powerful, and this is, exactly what you've just said is essentially what leaders in this industry are made up of, are those that are willing to lead and lead by example. But let's just say that someone starts in this business and they're really motivated and inspired because they can see what's possible, but they don't feel like they're a natural born leader. Maybe they've never had experience as a leader before. What advice would you give to somebody who feels like, I don't really know yet how to be that leader that I need to be in order to create other leaders underneath me?
Honestly, I actually think most people that started this industry, me included, walk through that process. I was 18. A majority of my network when I got started were older than me, more mature than me, more successful than me, already had traditional successful business, already had traditional successful careers, families. And, here I was saying, hey, trust me. And, the best thing and the best advice I think my parents ever gave me was just keep building the business, because you will grow into leadership in the process. And what I say by that is I remember the time where I just was like, I pushed myself to that next level because I had a downline that had such a burning desire, such a burning dream, and was doing work. And I just didn't want them to outwork me. Not in necessarily a competitive way, but a little bit competitive, but also just, hey, I just wanted to match their efforts and exceed their efforts at all times. And that was just what I said to myself is, I always want to be either matching or exceeding the efforts of my team. And so that honestly was how I developed leadership skills, was just pushing myself to be better for people in my team. And I think people think the other way around. They think, oh, I'll develop my leadership skills and then build a network. But in fact, your leadership skills are developed while building a network. And that's the power of our industry.
I love that. And so what do you use obviously developing and growing yourself is critically important in this process because you need to learn those skills from somewhere. I know that you've had your parents who have been an incredible influence for you, but where else have you done that learning? If someone thinking right now, okay, how do I learn some of these skills? What would Tamsen recommend for them to go and do? What would be a couple of those, I guess, those places for growth that you've gone to in the past?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, every industry has their own system teaching. So aside from that, I mean, we obviously have our own system teaching that we invest a lot of time into learning through. But outside of that, I mean, personal growth is personal growth, right? Mm-hmm. And so books are incredible. Books are just probably the greatest resource for two reasons. When you read, you teach yourself. You're talking to yourself. So there's that affirmation process in reading. And it's always, and at the end of the day, it's always just about continuously learning. So I'd say books is probably a big one. Podcasts. I mean, I think we're grateful to live in an environment these days where we almost have too many resources at our fingertips. There's really a lot of options to grow. So you just got to find material that connects with you and that excites you to go back to, because you want to make learning fun as part of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you got any podcasts or have you got any books that you can recommend? We'll throw them down in the show notes.
Yeah, well, I was, probably two big books that I think have been the most defining for me over the last 12 months would be The One Thing and Atomic Habits.
These books keep coming up.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there you go. And probably for the same reasons, like everything always comes back to, your daily habits, your daily disciplines. Yeah. I mean, even when you talk about in The One Thing, probably the most defining point in there was, they talked about selective discipline. And, this industry used to overwhelm me to a degree because I used to see people with success and be like, well, they're permanently disciplined. Like they're just hardcore, And when I read
these people that get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yep.
Yeah, that don't have kids that wake up at 5 a.m. but choose to. Who are these bionic people?
Yeah, don't like to talk to them.
Exactly. But it talks in that book is for a season, everything is selective discipline until it becomes habit. And I was like, that is awesome. And so true. I mean, I look at a lot of the habits in my day-to-day life that are not hard anymore, but were hard to start with. So
yeah. Tell me about a habit that you've had to build through this process.
Honestly, a personal growth habit would be a massive one in terms of reading and that side of things. It was actually a big learning point for me, is actually making that a part of my daily routine. But aside from that, phone calls. And I think for most of us, when we actually look at our industry, a lot of the stuff we can do online and virtually, but nothing can replace that personable relationship you have when you pick up the phone and call someone and show them, hey, I'm thinking of you and I'm willing to invest time here.
Yeah.
But I believe it's scary for all of us making those calls to people that we don't know and communicating that sort of thing. So that was a habit that was scary initially, but now is actually one of my most enjoyable things is, making calls.
Yeah. And picking up the phone, that's a really good example, because I think this is a really scary thing for so many people. I'm very fortunate because I've got a background where the very first job I ever got was quite literally door-to-door sales, the most horrific job ever. But it did teach me to have a fairly thick skin when it comes to asking a question, because in that job that I had, it was literally 100% commission based. So, if I didn't sell anything, I didn't earn any money that day to pay for rent. So there was that, I just have to get used to hearing the no, because essentially it was a numbers game. But for people that haven't had that experience that I feel now very privileged to have, I think the majority of people picking the phone up and making a call, having that conversation can be super, super scary. Because what if they say no? So how do you battle with that? Do you have a process that you go through to sort of, I guess, gear yourself up to pick the phone up, or even a conversation starter that you use to help make it feel natural and comfortable?
I think a lot of it actually comes down to preparation, which seems so silly. And I think, everyone thinks, oh, well, you're good at it, so you can pick up the phone and call anyone. And honestly, I can't. Like, I'm pretty good on the phone, and I find that I can cold call anyone without much preparation and find a way to connect. And that's only because of repetition. But but at the end of the day, if you're calling someone and you don't have clear in your mind what's in it for them, you're always going to feel like you're selling. You're always going to feel like you're begging for business. Yes. But if you stop and go, man, okay, I'm about to call this person and they're a traditional business owner, and this is what's happening in that industry right now. Hey, we know most traditional business owners, they either make a lot of money and have no time, or they have more time and no money, if we're honest, because your traditional business is you. And, that's generic blanket statement. Obviously, there's a lot of people in other situations, but if I've chatted to this person before and they're a parent and we've had a conversation about their kids and they run a traditional business and they've spoken about the fact that, they're time poor and they're balancing that, I know what's in it for them. I know what I'm offering them as a solution to that. And that just gives me that extra confidence there that I can connect with them. And, and a phone call is just an invitation to have a conversation further. It's not anything beyond that. So I think it's just more about understanding what's in it for them. What are you getting on the phone for?
Yeah. I love that. Now, the thing that's really unique, I think, about you, and I would say that there is a smaller percentage of people that build their business the way that you do, which is that you're focused on the business builders more so. You're passionate, I would say, about the business builders versus being product-led. Not that you don't love the product, but when we were chatting last time in preparation for this podcast, you were telling me that you're really passionate about sort of that network of people that are business builders and networking with them on the basis of that. And you sort of indicated that in the conversation so far. Now, I know a lot of people listening to this podcast probably come from the other end because they're afraid in many ways of that. How do I lead with the business? Because it feels a little bit, maybe a little bit scary, a little bit more uncertain, or even overwhelming to go in with that. Was that something that you just sort of came straight in with, this is, what I'm really passionate about, or was that something you built over time?
Well, I have to say that's basically how I started, especially, with our particular business. I mean, that's really how we learn the process initially. I actually think product, and I have a team of people and there's lots of people on my team that have a health approach and have a beauty approach. And so at the end of the day, I always say to people, whatever gives you the most joy, do it, because momentum will always win. It doesn't matter which strategy you choose to take, as long as you're willing to run the numbers, because, and I always say, it's not so much the strategy, it's commitment to the strategy. Yeah. For myself personally, I offer business first primarily because I don't want to choose for someone. And sometimes we offer product first and they're not looking for that particular product, and we might lose that opportunity to actually develop a business relationship with them. But I always find it's much easier to go from business to product than it is to go from product to business as a fallback, so because, hey, we all have conversations with people that what we're offering is not what they're looking for at that stage. Plenty of people I connect with and show them our marketing plan, and they're like, you know what, no, I'm not looking for something right now, but hey, that health product you talk about, wow, that would make sense to me. Or that beauty product you talk about, that would make sense to me. And I can always move through that process comfortably. So for me, I guess it's just a comfort zone, but also just trying to be more effective with my time. And if I'm making that appointment, I'm connected with that person, I find that process is able to identify, how I can help them best by starting business first. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So next phone call that you make, you're sitting down, you've got time allocated. I know that you spoke to me today about today's my calling day. I'm going to reach out to some people. Where do you start? Do you have a list of people that you've already been in contact with? Where do you get those people from? How do you fill that pipeline up? What's your go-to?
Yeah, I have a prospect book. So every time I meet someone, connect with someone, I just write their name down, put their card in, whatever it is. So I have a running prospect book, but I pick 5 names at a time the night before and put them on a Post-it note. So because otherwise, we all procrastinate, don't we? And so we go, I'm going to make calls. We sit down and then you just become overwhelmed by the decision of having to pick the people to call, and you talk yourself out of things. And I remember my dad once said to me, every time you skip over a name, you lose. You lose confidence, you lose clarity, And so, you just pick the names and you commit to that process. So, so that's what I found worked for me. And obviously, we live in a networking world. We meet people online daily. We meet people face to face daily. Well, some of us are doing that, right? Some of us aren't. I'm sorry. So we live in a great world where we're always able to grow our list. Prospects, we always have an abundance of prospects. It's more, again, just about us being clear with chipping away daily with what we're doing.
I love that. I love the idea of just getting the simplicity of a post-it note. People constantly asking me, Sam, what program do you use? What setup do you use? What should we do? And, you're so right. Sometimes we come up with all these really clever ways to procrastinate. They seem like we're doing something very clever, but really what we're doing is putting off the obvious, and just simply picking that phone up is such a simple thing to do. So writing those 5 names down. And, I like that you said 5, because I feel like in my world, it's really easy to, when you get through that process where you go, right, I'm going to write my names down to call tomorrow, suddenly you turn that list into 10 because you're an overachiever. And then you get to that list and you go, oh, now I don't know which one to start with. So I love the fact that it's just 5. Now, let's just say that you're picking the phone up to one of those 5 people. Do you have, you've met that person, maybe you came across them at a barbecue, or you're at a networking event, or, you're at a gala ball last week and you met somebody new and you wrote that name down. Do you have an opener that you use, or do you have, you've said that you prepare for those calls. So you're thinking to yourself about, how can you essentially add value to them and make it about them? But how do you start that conversation? Because I think that's probably the thing that holds most people back is, what do I even say? How do I start that conversation so that it doesn't feel like I'm jumping straight into a sell?
Yeah. Well, I think the first part is, you want to be remembered. So if you've met them prior, the first part to the phone call is actually how you've met or how you've actually connected. People always think connecting just happens on the phone, but connecting starts with the minute you virtually meet someone, physically meet someone, whatever it is. And a lot of it is being remembered, so that you can immediately connect. Because if you've got a common interest, or if we met through our kids at a park, which is probably more common for me than a gala ball right now, but I'll try and visualize.
I've got balls on the brain. We're organising our next fundraising ball.
Oh, look, I'm privileged. You feel like I'm that luxurious, but but a park's more like my day-to-day
dream. We can dream.
But we've met through kids, and and that's a common connector. So you just got to start with something that breaks down walls. And whenever you have something in interest, whether it's nationality, whether it's children, whether it's job related, that's what you start with, and then you can always build from there. Because if there's some way that you can connect and make each other laugh, then I believe really you can kind of stuff up everything else, but they'll still they'll still connect with you, and you can move forward.
Yeah, love that. So let's talk a little bit about social media for a moment, because you've come into the business before social media was really a thing. And I remember, I feel really old saying this because my kids look at me like, you were around when social media was invented? Yeah, I've got gnats in my office. This happens every time I do a podcast episode. People keep sending me all these gnat tips. So I've got a couple of office plants, and these gnats are attracted, I don't know why, to my microphone, but only when I'm using it. So, I'm breathing them in. Anyway, go off on some kind of weird tangent here. So I can remember the day that social media came in, and it was sort of that huge change for every business, because there was this time where everyone kind of had to really either embrace the fact that the world had changed or choose to sit with what they were doing. Now, a lot of people just dog-headedly stuck with this is the way of traditional business, and I don't really do social media until last year. And that's where everyone went, you know what? I'm either going to sink or swim here. I'm going to have to embrace social media. And so, we've been through several changes over the last, I would say, 10 years. And the introduction of social media, the growth of that, and then last year being sort of that year where people had to really take that leap of faith. How have you found that social media has affected your business, and how has it either helped or hindered over the years? And how do you operate, with social media being a part of that now? That's a bit of a myriad of questions there, but I'll let you just take whichever one you want to start with and go from there.
Yeah, look, I was that kind of dog-headed, face-to-face works, and I was that person really up until 18 months ago. And a lot of that is, I guess, hey, sometimes we have to be forced into a way where we stop, take a step back and actually get creative, because like everything, it can either be a tool or it can be, a distraction, right?
Yep.
And so you can choose. And still there's a lot of people I know that in the network marketing industry that, spend a lot of time on social media and don't use it as a tool. And I also know a lot of people in the network marketing industry that use social media as a tool and have, created huge monetary value from that. And I guess I just had to stop and get my thinking around, okay, because I always just had this mentality, hey, it's total distraction, like it's a time waster, and just cut out anything in my life that was taking time away. And I literally did not even have a Facebook account until 2 years ago. So that says a lot in terms of understanding, hey, our industry doesn't have to be built on social media, but what I truly do believe is we are in a season now where social media is that time, and where we can choose or should choose to use it as a tool. It's definitely a learning curve for me at the moment. And I haven't properly explored all platforms. I was saying to you the other day, like I really am such a novice in terms of it. But right now, what I've found as a value point with it is, people, and it was so funny, I was talking to someone about this the other day, the amount of people in my business that have reconnected to product because they've seen me active on social media. And I guess it's the whole, at the end of the day, everyone's spending their time there. So if you're not in front of people's face in some way, and it's not even doing a massive product promotion, it's just being there and they go, oh, that's right. I've run out of that and I've got to reorder it, or,
Yep.
And so that's been a blessing I've seen. And that's me not even being deliberate with it. Like I'm totally a novice. I'm really amateur,
No, I think it's really comforting to hear you say that. But it's actually really, really interesting because you say that you're a novice, yet you're doing the one thing that we are constantly trying to teach people is the most effective way to use social media. And that's just sharing how you do things. How do you use the products? What do you get up to? And in some ways, I think being a novice is a blessing in itself, because it means that you do what is really important, which is just connect. It's just, this is who I am, this is what I do, rather than getting, people sometimes overthink social media. I think they get too technical and too marketing focused and too strategic, and they forget to just help people connect with them. Yeah. And if you're sharing, here's my favorite product, or, I love this, or this is how I do that, or having morning shakes with the kids or something like that, that's sharing your journey. And that in itself is much more relatable than some kind of a beautifully designed professional post promoting something. So, you say novice, I actually think this is probably the one tip that I'd say to everybody, take away from Tamsen here right now, is just, share how you're using things, what you're doing and what you're getting up to. So I love that. And everyone's got to start from somewhere, right? And I think it's fantastic to hear that, not everybody who is, leading the way in this industry has got social media down pat. You don't need to. Yeah. It's not, it's an amazing tool, but it's not the be all and end all. I can't believe I just said that. People are going to be listening going, what? But it's not. It's about relationships.
Yeah, well, and it's an effective tool to build relationships and enhance what you're doing for sure. And I think that's what you do so well, and obviously why you're able to help people so effectively. So yeah, but at the end of the day, it's again just an area where you can amplify what you already know. And it amplifies good and it amplifies bad. So at the end of the day, it's still about us working on ourselves and learning what we can do.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what platform do you use when you're using it, or what's your preference? And also, what would be your, highest priority activity on social media? Even if you are, as you say, a novice, where do you prioritize your time when you're doing work versus socializing on social media?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely at this stage, more private Facebook groups for coaching and leadership stuff. So we do a lot of kind of live streams in there. And I found personally they've been probably the most effective for me, also very easy to learn, which is, awesome. I'm definitely not a good example of my generation. So, I found them really effective because, again, like awesome resource to be able to get a lot of information out to people quickly. In terms of prospecting, I've observed, probably haven't actioned as effectively. Instagram, I think, is a fantastic tool for prospecting. But, again, done that on a really slow, kind of almost non-existent level, but have definitely actually gained quite a few new business leads through that process.
So Going through this process and over the years, have you been able to identify for you a specific target customer that you spend majority of your time focusing on?
Yeah. Look, it's funny because people ask me that all the time, and probably only now it's become a little bit more connected, because I think when I got started, I was 18, so everyone was not really in my demographic. There was very little 18-year-olds in that season that would start. There's very little 18-year-olds, to be honest, that would start this industry unless they had a bit of prior gumption to it. But so I think for a long time, I actually learned to be able to effectively connect and lead almost anyone. But I think obviously becoming a mum over the last few years, it's just actually organically developed a little bit more of a marketplace that I connect with easier, just naturally between kids and young mums and young families. So it's hard to say, because I am actually very good at connecting to most people. This business opportunity, because I had to learn that really quickly, and I had to learn that process really quickly. But probably what I do without even thinking is connecting with other mums is probably a bit more of an organic step. Yeah.
And it certainly gives you an easy conversation starter and point, right? I mean, you're going through a lot of the same challenges in life, and, you've also got an excuse to meet with them too, because, hey, let's have a play date, meet at the park, probably not a ball,
Absolutely.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about what's changed in your business over the last 12 months, because we've all had a bit of a whirlwind, but I think that's been different for everyone. So I'd love to hear how things have changed for you specifically.
Yeah, look, I mean, probably the biggest thing is physical move to virtual, right? Yeah. So we as a business model ran a lot of physical events, a lot of weekly meetups, a lot of, for either health or business or, mastermind groups, all of that. So I guess that transition going from physical to virtual, which I have absolutely loved, to be honest, because COVID happened while I was pregnant with our second.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you know, with a 1-year-old now, you've had a little bit more of a challenge than most.
Yeah, and honestly, and I was actually quite actively building with my first pregnancy, and he just came along to everything. For a long period of time, I mean, he became a very good car traveler because of that. But actually, being able to eliminate that travel time has been a blessing for me during this season, because obviously two little kids is very different to one. Obviously, we have our older kids as well, but different dynamic. They don't need to have their nappies changed, which is And so the physical to virtual has been massive. And also, actually, I feel like it's allowed me to offer a fair leadership role over all my teams. I have quite a diverse business. I mean, when I got started, I traveled interstate a lot to get a lot of my teams started. So I've got quite a lot around Australia, New Zealand, and internationally as a byproduct of this. And so I was already utilizing Zoom for interstate people and international people anyway. So I already kind of used that as a platform. Mm-hmm. But I really did feel like they missed out on, the stuff we were running locally and that kind of things. And I have actually seen a lot of growth in a lot of our interstate teams over this season, because all of a sudden it's just become an even more even playing field, and and everyone being able to connect more. Because people only knew people in their area per se. And so so I still miss physical. I think nothing can ever, go and replace to that face-to-face connection that you can, lead someone through that process. I think that's just such a value add and a way that we can connect with people that you can't do anywhere else. But I do believe that virtual's added a lot of blessing from more fair and even distribution of information too.
Awesome. And are you guys planning on getting back to doing the in-person sometime soon? Is that on the cards at the moment?
Well, we've started running in-person kind of smaller trainings, and we've got a large event happening in October again to kick things off. So so we're very excited. Very, very, very excited.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of anticipation at the moment, a little bit of fear and trepidation around it as well. But certainly a lot of people are just so ready to see an actual live human being again. It was pretty funny. We had the DSA conference about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, and that was our first conference back with an in-person I'm going to say a year and a half. And it was really funny watching everybody walk into the room, because it was this instant, everyone just was so excited to see other humans. They just wanted to hug, and but no one could. And so there was just this energy with everyone that was, it was quite infectious. It was great, but it was also hilarious hearing everybody talk about, no one was in high heels because no one was used to wearing them anymore. And everyone was talking about how they had to actually match their tops with their bottoms because they hadn't thought about their bottom half for so long. So, it was great getting back to it in person. And it's unfortunate that, that's sort of taken a little bit of a step back again. We thought we were getting back into it, but I'm excited for you guys. I think it'll be fantastic to get back to face-to-face again.
Yeah, big family reunion. It'll be awesome.
Yes. Are you expecting many people?
Yeah, it should be a couple of thousand for that one.
Oh, so fantastic.
Don't know if I can say that.
Oh, sorry. No, a couple of hundred. Just said a couple hundred. They'll be in different rooms in different places at different times.
Plenty abiding by rules.
Lots of masks and elbows, right?
Yeah.
It's been a bit funny here. We've had a bit of a giggle about it because we're in Tasmania, as you know. And so here we've been a little bit protected. There've been no masks for all of this time. And people, I think, are a little bit complacent in Tasmania. So the whole hugging, handshaking thing, I don't think that ever disappeared here. So it's quite different when you go. We call it the mainland. When you go to the mainland, the main part of Australia, it's a very different experience over there for you guys. And so I think we're very blessed here because it's kind of been just life as normal. We just can't leave.
Just trapped.
We're just kind of in this really fun jail. So I do want to just I got two quick questions to finish off with. I know that, as always, we've been chatting and gone a little bit over time here, but I've been having a great time hearing about your story, Tamsen. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I kind of want to go into the hard yards for a second. What hasn't worked for you? What's been your, I guess, it hasn't all been, I'm going to say probably unicorns and rainbows through this journey in the business for you. So what hasn't worked for you in this business?
Yeah, a lot. So that's just the honest truth. And I always joke and I say 80% of what you do feels like an absolute waste of time in our industry, and 20% makes you feel stinking rich. So you just got to be willing to do that. But there's two sides to that. I mean, no amount of work is going to move you in the right direction if you don't have a goal. And there's been plenty of seasons in my business where I haven't had a clear goal and I've just maintained my work ethic. And that's been great. I mean, I've still had growth, but it hasn't been the growth that I needed, hasn't been effective time input. And then there's been other seasons when I've had a clear defined goal and nothing you do can stop that from happening. It's crazy. And so I just think at the end of the day, in our industry in particular, you've got to be prepared that most of what you do is not going to feel like it's leading anywhere. But 20%, it's that 20% that turns a corner. And my dad used to always say to me, the next person you introduce could introduce 1,000 people. The next person you introduce, and it's so true. And it's so, so true. And you just got to keep running through the numbers. And you only need a small amount of leaders for this thing to absolutely boom. And so, so to be honest, it's not a funny question, but it's such a relevant question because most of the time in our industry, you really feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall. The biggest thing I always say to people is just make sure you have a clear goal, number one. And number two, make sure you don't give up. And those two things together with work, obviously, is the most important thing. So, I mean, obviously, heaps of strategies have failed, heaps of strategies, over time. But most of the time it's just been because I haven't had a goal.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's so true. It's just that one next thing, isn't it? Just the one next thing. What's the one next thing that you can do? Yeah. How have you gone about setting those goals? Because obviously that in itself can be pie in the sky. Do you have a strategy that you go to when you are setting goals for yourself that are both achievable but also motivating and inspiring?
Look, I think at the end of the day, there's so much goal-setting information out there in this world that we live in. You've almost got to find what works for you. But we've always run off the rule of you got to have a 10-year timeline, a 3-year game plan, and a 1-year not negotiable. So that's kind of how I've always run. And then, again, goes back to the one thing. And what's the one thing that's going to be the trigger for that 1 year not negotiable?
It's really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to run through goal, right? I mean, that's probably, I think the biggest mistake I always made is I would run to a goal and then kind of, and that's why you've got to have a goal beyond a goal because you don't run to a goal and then that's it. You got to run through a goal. Every goal that you hit is a platform to, the bigger picture.
Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think that's really important too. I mean, how many of us set just the next goal thinking I'll just get there, and then you sort of get to that and think, well, what's next? But it does give you, almost your next goal is the next one thing, isn't it? In a sense, because you can then set the next one thing that gets you to that 3 or the 10-year or whatever that might be for you. I love that. So just to finish up, last question, I promise. If you were giving a piece of advice to somebody who either feels like they're stuck right now or they're brand new to the business, what piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah. I would say do a 90-day burst. So I believe our industry is built in 90-day bursts, and in our industry you can reach the top of the bonus scale within 3 months effectively. And so I just think most of us, we just play ball with this for too long. We dabble with it, we hobby it, and you just need a season where you just absolutely sell out. You wake up thinking about it, you go to bed thinking about it, and you just do a 90-day burst, because momentum is the key to our business. And it takes 90 days to build momentum, and because it's got to start with personal momentum. So that's my advice. I mean, check with your coach, but I just think, hey, 90 days, sell out, rock and roll, and you'll be glad you did. Never had someone that's done that, and it's regretted them forward.
That's awesome advice. I love that so much. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out. I'm going to walk away from this feeling inspired and motivated myself. I think this is awesome. And I love that we've been able to talk to someone who is going through, real life. You've got kids, you've got balancing acts, you've got a husband, you've got work, and you're still really focused. And I can see that you know what you're doing, you know what to do next. And when you get stuck, I can see that you've got a really clear focus of how to get unstuck, which is sensational. So thank you for taking the time out today, Tamsen. I've really loved chatting and hearing from you.
Yeah, I've enjoyed chatting with you too. So thank you for having me here.
Such a pleasure. And if anyone wants to hear a little bit more about you or your team or what you guys get up to, how can they reach you?
Yeah, come find me on either Facebook or Instagram. You'll find me under my name, Tamsen Sala-Linnan, and I'd love to connect, and chat and hear your story as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Tamsen. It's been fantastic. I'm going to let you get back to your beautiful kids, because I know that you've got to that balancing act. You've got calls to make today, and you've got kids to wrangle and all the fun stuff that us parents have to do. So thank you for taking the time out. And we look forward to watching more, watch this space and see more of what you and your team get up to. So Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and listening today. It's been great having you, and we look forward to tuning in again next week. Bye for now, and God bless.